If you have found this video, then it is likely you already know the story of Dragon Quest. First released in 1986 for the Famicom, and brought to the US 2 years later, it was the brainchild of Yuji Horii. Published by Enix and produced by Koichi Nakamura's company Chunsoft, it was a landmark game inspired by Western RPGs such as Wizardry and Ultima, and an attempt at bringing that style of gameplay and fantasy storytelling over to a wider audience by simplifying many of the mechanics. With the help of manga artist Akira Toriyama and composer Koichi Sugiyama, it really was the coming together of some of Japan's finest artists to produce this game. It has since been released numerous times: Super Famicom, Game Boy Color, mobile phones, and most recently the Nintendo Switch. This is the version I am using to play the game. Interestingly enough, this is the only console version of the game to be released in Europe, which is most of the reason why I am using this version. While Dragon Quest became a phenomenon in Japan and has reasonable levels of popularity in the US, in Europe our first taste of the Dragon Quest series was with the 8th entry. Since then, all the mainline games have been released in some form over in Europe. As far as I believe, the Switch version of the game is heavily based on the Super Nintendo remake, featuring rebalanced stats, experience gain, and also including stat seeds. While this may be seen as not the true version of the game, I really think that the Super Nintendo version is closer to his original vision. After all, I don't think it was ever the intention of Yuji Horii to create a hard game. Things which are often criticised about the game, such as needing to bring up the menu to open a door or climb the stairs, has been altered to make it more accessible, and the combat has been tweaked to make it fairer, no more being killed on the very first slime encounter. This video is not written to tell you about the development history. This is not to be treated as a retrospective. I am not going to tell you about each version of the game. Instead, I wish to look at why this is one of my favourite games, what is good and what is not so good, and if it is worth your time and attention today. But enough chit chat. We begin the game with a name entry, not uncommon for games released at the time, and still a big part of the role-playing experience today. I prefer to use canon names where possible, so I decide to opt for Loto, the Japanese localization for the name Erdrick, but more on that later. We can also adjust speed for text and sound settings, and we begin. Immediately, we find ourselves in the throne room of the castle. This is the kingdom of Tantagel, which is a part of the land known as Alefgard. The king has summoned us, the descendant of Erdrick, a legendary hero of the past. We're told that it was Erdrick that had previously received the Sphere of Light from the goddess to save the land. However, a new threat has arisen in the form of the Dragon Lord, who has stolen the Sphere of Light and plunged the land into darkness once again. While it is cliché to be given an exposition dump at the very beginning, it is succinct and gives us enough information to be invested in our quest. Who is Erdrick? What did the king mean by once again? We are then advised by the king to speak to others within the castle for more information. After our conversation, we are allowed to move. Very simple controls. A to interact, Y to bring up a menu, D-pad to move. There are 3 chests in front of us. These contain 120 gold, a torch and a magic key. The magic key is used up by leaving the throne room. While in-world this could be seen as a stingy move by the king, gameplay-wise it gives us 2 important tutorials. Chests are important and will enable progression, and keys unlock doors. There are only certain places in the world where it's possible to buy more keys, so it will require some progression before we can use them again. We leave the throne room and enter the castle proper. We heed the king's advice and speak to those in the castle. We find out that Princess Gwaelin is also missing. Apparently the king thought that it was not important enough to tell us. We can also find out information about a town that has also been beset by monsters. We'll have to keep that in mind. Talking to some of the guards, we are advised that battling monsters allows us to get better, and that we're also able to use torches to light up dark places. All of this might seem obvious to anyone with any ounce of RPG knowledge, but it's still very important for new players. I do appreciate how natural some of this information is provided to us as well. Throughout the game, NPCs will throw in little bits of advice about the world or tips to play the game. It's worth paying attention to everything they have to say, as they'll often provide hints for progression. After raiding some pots to find a medical herb, we can then leave the castle into the overworld. To the east, we can find a town. North is forests, and to the southeast lies a dark castle across the water. This is our final destination, and having it so clearly in sight is, again, a great bit of design. After all, if we could just cross the water somehow. We can press X to open a map of the overworld. Highlighted are points of interest. In all directions of the map are places to go, but we might as well start with the closest place. Making our way to Tantagel town, we are met with our first battle, against a she-slime. Here we can see our battle screen. Battles are fought from a first-person perspective where we do not see the hero, just the monster. I am incredibly fond of this system and will always defend it as a Dragon Quest tradition. It allows Toriyama's monster design to be displayed front and centre while also making battles fast and snappy. Attacks are given a nice animation, we're given details of how the battle is going through a text box at the bottom of the screen. We are given our health and magic points as well as our level. We are also given a menu. We can attack, cast a spell, flee the battle, or use any items. We do not have any spells yet and we do not need to heal, so attacking it is. Battles are resolved based on agility. The fastest character in the battle, along with a random dice roll, resolves its action first, with the other one resolving its action afterwards. This can be crucial to know when it comes to knowing when to heal in later battles. While combat is kept simple due to only having one party member fighting one monster, it still requires some thought and planning to know exactly when to heal. As of right now though, the only action we have is to keep on attacking until we win. We are rewarded with experience and gold for our troubles. You know what? We are not in a risky state yet. Let's continue to walk around. One thing I really appreciate in this version of the game is the fact we get full artwork for the monsters and background. It makes for a really nice experience, even if the battles only last for a few seconds. With enough battles, our level goes up to 2. This increases our stats. For this level up, our strength, which increases our attack power, and our max HP, which means we can take more hits. Other stats include MP, magic or mana points, which dictates how many spells you use, agility, which determines whether you attack first or second, and resilience, which determines how much HP you lose when attacked. With that done, let's finally go to the town. Here we can find an inn to rest our health and magic points for the exchange of some gold. The inn also contains a bank to hold our gold and items for us for safekeeping. The town also contains an item shop to buy more medicinal herbs and an item called a Chimera Ring. This will instantly take us back to the castle. It is important to know that while speaking to the king is the only method to properly save the game, we can also use the quick save option at any time in this version of the game. We also have an armory. Here I purchase some armour to prop up my defences and a club to better take on the monsters. On the way I confuse the girl for the princess, who proceeds to follow me around, and we learn of a town to the north called Galenholm, named after the bard called Galen, whose loot seems important enough to mention. Time to leave the town. Our admirer does not follow us, so we are once again alone to fend off the monsters. I travel north towards Galenholm. Between our level up and our club, the monsters we encountered no longer take multiple rounds to defeat. As we make our way northwards, I encounter a cave, and it is indeed dark enough to require a torch. It is a bit of a maze, but safe from monsters. We make our way downwards and eventually find a stone tablet. This seems to be a message from us from our ancestor, Erdrick. He tells us that 3 items have been entrusted to 3 sages. We need to gather those items to cross into the Dragon Lord's castle. This, again, is great design. Not only are players given useful information, but the information is provided using in-world dialogue, and as a reward for exploration. We leave the cave and continue our path northwards, making sure to take on as many monsters as possible to level up. Level 3 gives us our first spell, Heal, along with some magic points. Heal is self-explanatory, allowing us to restore 25 to 30 HP for 3 magic points. Our level up provided us with 4 NP, meaning we can heal once before resting in an inn. It's worth noting that this is not an RPG that restores HP and MP on a level up. This means our safest option is to finally enter our town. We are given some information to help us. The princess is towards the east, otherwise it is more of the same, but the armory offers more powerful equipment that could be worth saving up for. In the town there are some areas locked off by keys, so we need to find them before we can access the rest of what the town has to offer. We rest at the inn, more expensive than Tantagel, and leave the town. I guessed eastwards is probably worth exploring next. We travel east and eventually we're able to cross a bridge. We encounter a scorpion, a notably stronger enemy than we have encountered previously, and we die. We get taken back to the king, who gives us the chastising and tells us how far away we are from leveling up. We are also parted with half our gold. While some RPGs take you back to your last save point, making you work back to where you were last, Dragon Quest, you keep your experience. This essentially means that there is no game over state, allowing for constant forward progression. Again, it pushes the player towards exploration as there is less of a risk. But it is also a reminder that combat is the name of the game. The more we fight, the stronger we become and the further we can explore. Crossing a bridge in this game puts us in a new area where the monsters are stronger, so what you need to do is grind up enough experience to be able to move on to the next area, which allows you to fight stronger enemies for more experience and more gold. Gold is important as that allows you to get significantly stronger weapons and armor, and as the game progresses, these milestones become increasingly further apart. The bank in Tantagel does help to mitigate the risk of death further by allowing you to keep gold in units of 1,000 gold safe. At this point, however, we didn't lose too much. So we continue to fight Drakes and ghosts to get stronger. I walk around to increase my level. Level 4 grants us the use of Sizz Spell, our first offensive spell in our arsenal. This does small amounts of damage to enemies for 2 NP, which isn't too useful, but can be helpful for certain enemy types which are weaker to magic. Level 5 gives us more stat increases. At this point I now have 35 HP and 15 NP, allowing us to heal more times per rest. But what we are still lacking is gold. My milestone at the minute is to get 480 gold for the chainmail and the copper sword, which raises my defense and attack to allow me to tank more hits from monsters and hit harder. Now might be a good time to talk about presentation, and I am of two minds. I previously praised the battle screen with the drawn backgrounds and monster sprites. I really do like them, but they do contrast with the pixel art of the rest of the world. Likewise, the hero and NPC sprites clash with the pixel overworld art. Yes, these do not have a pixel art aesthetic, but instead look like generic RPG Maker sprites, and it is the worst part of this version of the game in my opinion. While the art design of the NPCs are fine, something about the way the hero look in this version just looks off. He looks less like a hero and more like a child playing dress up. He just stands out like a sore thumb as the only character sprite in the world. I think it's interesting that the mobile phone version, the version on which this is a port of, actually had a more unified art style, with the monster designs and the NPCs and their hero using pixel art sprites. Otherwise, the menus look clean and clear and still have that old school black and white aesthetic. My only complaint being the generic font. The game runs at a smooth 30 FPS and feels fine to play either docked or in handheld mode. The music is also very good. They've opted for a more modern MIDI track rather than the original chiptune, but the melodies themselves are incredible and are iconic for a reason. They set the tone for the adventure. The overworld theme is mysterious, but gives a sense that danger could be lurking around the corner and pushes you to continue the quest. The battle theme is fast and tense, giving the player urgency to try and come up on top. The town theme is warm and safe, and the castle theme is regal. While there are only a few tracks, and you'll be listening to the same songs repeatedly. They're all enjoyable enough to not become grating, even after hours into the adventure. I really think that there is more Square Enix could have done for this game. It is a fairly cheap and underwhelming port of the mobile version of the game. However, as it is still completely functional, and it is also something to be grateful for that we do have a modernised version of this game to play. Something that cannot be said for other Dragon Quest games. I know I will get some angry comments, but in my opinion, the American NES game is harder to play for the reasons suggested earlier. While the SNES remake and the Game Boy Color port improves a lot on the NES game, the SNES is unfortunately a Japan exclusive, and the Game Boy Color port suffers a lot from screen crunch, meaning that this is still, in my opinion, the best version of the game to play currently. It is after some grinding that I can now purchase the equipment upgrades and feel brave enough to cross the bridge. We come across our new town, Cole. In this town, we learn that there is a key merchant to the south and a maiden that is locked up in a cave near here. Sounds like that could be worth following along. Exploring the town, we also find a shiny spot which gives us the fairy flute. We don't know what this does, but one of the townsfolk gives us a clue that it may help us against a particular monster we may encounter later on our quest. That's worth bearing in mind. Most importantly though, it is in Cole that we can do the most important thing. Receive a Puff Puff. What is a Puff Puff? It is left up to your imagination. It costs us 20 gold and mechanically it does nothing. Is it worth it though? Absolutely. After resting, we leave the town and continue to grind. The scorpions around this area can now easily be beaten with our Sizz spell. We also encounter monsters that are able to use the Sizz spell themselves for larger amounts of damage, meaning that we need to keep our eye on our health and heal when needed. These are better off being killed using our standard attacks. Taking the path through the mountains to the northwest, we encounter a shrine. Here we are asked to provide a harp, probably linking back to Galen. Trading this in, we will be given the Staff of Rain. This man looks sufficiently sage-like, so we can conclude that the Staff of Rain is one of the items we need for our quest. As I travel around, continuing to grind, I can spot a cave to the south of Galen home. In this cave, there are no quest-related items. It is a completely optional area, but it does provide many chests containing gold and equipment. It makes the early grind much easier, as not only do you not need to spend money on the iron shield, but you are also in a much better position to purchase the next equipment upgrades. This cave is very narrow, and without a torch it is incredibly easy to get lost. Still worth going through, especially as there is a little secret. One of the chests contain a torch. However, if you attempt to open it with a full inventory and you refuse to throw anything out and keep going, you can eventually find a choker in the chest instead. While the choker is a cursed item which you do not want to equip, it can be sold for a large amount of money. After our little excursion, we are now at level 9, and after selling our treasures, we are well equipped to continue our journey. Travelling south from Cole, we reach an unavoidable obstacle, Poison Swamp. These tiles damage you with every step, but it's something we have to deal with, as our next destination is the cave. This is a very short cave. It acts as our bridge to the next town. On the way, we see another door that unfortunately we cannot pass through without a magic key, but at least we now know how to acquire them. Let's keep that in the back of our mind and continue. We reach the end of the cave and enter a new area. More new enemies, but we're more than powerful enough to deal with them. And we can enter the town of Remuldar. Usual town things. The inn is more expensive and the selection of weapons and armour is better. Townsfolk also provide more hints. One of them tells us there is a shrine to the south, and another confirms the shrine to the north we previously spotted is of importance. We are given some hints about our ancestor. Apparently he came down from the sky. I can afford full plate armour straight away, and my next goal is to purchase the steel broadsword. In this town, available for purchase is the magic armour for 7,700 gold. With this you are able to heal just by walking, but it is a bit beyond what we can afford, and there will be another armour that is much more efficient that we'll get later on, so this isn't worth grinding for. While walking around, we do not find the magic key shop conventionally, but I do see a girl walking beyond the boundaries of the town. Going to speak to her, she is looking for her boyfriend, But what we are able to do is walk around the boundaries. Walking around the edge of the town, we find an entrance to a normally inaccessible building, which happens to be the Magic Key Shop. We are able to hold 6 of these at once, so we buy them and leave the town. Our next stop is south to see what the sage wants. He tells us that we must have proof that we really are Erdrick's descendants, so certainly not as kind as his colleague. Now we have magic keys, we're able to explore previously inaccessible places. Going back to the castle, we're able to access some chests containing items and stat seeds. These are consumable items that increase our stats further. There's another door to the outside area which contains another magic key shop. This is useful, as it means that as long as we have 1 key, we're able to restore our keys back to maximum without travelling all the way back to Rimelda. Using our knowledge of travelling around the boundaries of towns, we are able to find another secret shrine. This sage is the most trusting of our heritage, allowing us to take this item immediately. We're able to take the Sunstone, which I take back to the bank to store away safely. At this point we've reached a bit of a lull. Whereas before progression was quite quick and well signposted, and the level ups were very quick to come by, now they're getting few and far between. And we still need to get a few more levels before we can survive going back to Galenholm. So I opt to grind a little bit more. The enemies around Rimelda provide good amounts of experience and gold while being relatively quick to defeat. There is also a chance of stumbling upon a monster called a gold golem. While providing very little experience relative to other monsters in the area, he drops a whopping 650 gold, making it very valuable and makes getting the broadsword more painless. Once you've got the sword, there is little left to do but grind for experience. So I went away from recording, planning on only grinding until around level 12. But I kept going, and I kept going, all the way up until level 14. Now this may not seem like a lot more, but this is actually a jump from 4,000 total EXP to 7,500 total EXP. Again, while there is far less to think about when battling, it does mean that level grinding in this game is quite an easy second screen activity. Put on a YouTube video, put on a movie or a TV series and just grind. Back in Galenholm, I'm able to open the locked door which leads into a building. The tomb of Galen is hidden, but while searching for it, I loot a poor man's possessions, him thinking that they are unnecessary given the world's imminent doom. The entrance to the tomb is hidden behind one of the black tiles. I go through, leading to a passageway. A ghost? Tells me that no one has come back from entering the tomb, but nevertheless, I enter anyway. Galen's tomb is one of the largest dungeons in the game, and is an invariable maze. However, again, lighting a torch or using the glow spell reveals a significant portion of the map. Unlike the optional dungeon earlier, there is not a huge number of treasures, just more gold and more stat seeds. Instead, it is about ensuring that you do not become lost, and you do not fall for the convenient staircases that are littered across the floors. You see, many of these staircases lead to dead ends. The monsters in this tomb are a step up from the monsters fought previously, but they are no match for the hero now that I've been grinding up to this degree. Traversing through the tomb, we eventually find our way through to the centre and uncover the Lyre of Ire. This instrument immediately summons a monster to do battle with us. Perhaps there was a bit more to this Galen fellow than we first thought. We don't have much use of this item, however, and can be traded immediately for the Staff of Rain in the Northern Shrine. Speaking to the sage, we're told that if the darkness is allowed to continue much longer, then the people of this world will turn darker. An ominous message, and we're seeing more and more of people's acts of despair. It pushes us to complete our quest. Now, having 2 of the 3 artifacts in our possession, we just have 1 more to find. Bringing up the map, we can see the entire southern area has been left unexplored. But before we go to that area, we have 1 final area to backtrack and use our keys in. Going back to the cave south of Cole, we go through the door to find the princess held hostage by a green dragon. This is our first overworld encounter, possibly one that could be described as a boss. At this point now we can take it down quite easily, but we still need to make sure we heal when our health starts to decline. After talking to the princess, who falls madly in love with us immediately, we're treated to a unique sprite of the hero carrying the princess back. I quite like the implication that the hero fought off monsters while holding the princess. It's quite impressive. We opt to use the zoom spell, which replaces the Chimera Wing item, to instantly travel back to the castle, at which point we're treated to new dialogue from townsfolk celebrating the princess's return. We talk to the king, who's overjoyed. Perhaps he was just putting on a brave face at the beginning of the game, and we receive the princess's pledge. This is an item that tells us how much experience we need to gain a new level, but will also tell us how far away we are from her location. Surely there won't be any consequences for the princess falling in love with us, right? Despite this being the right and canonical thing to do, this is a completely optional questline, and we could have avoided the trouble of rescuing the princess at all. But the experience the dragon dropped is well worth it, as we're now close to leveling up our hero to 15. With that done, we drop our artifacts and money at the bank and travel to the area south of Tantegel to explore and gather the final items needed. Our next stop is the ruined town of Damdara. The rumours of several townsfolk were correct. This desert town has been left absolutely devastated, and what's more, monsters of incredible difficulty now stalk the area. A new enemy, a cosmic chimera, are particularly painful, as they can cast a mid-heal spell, which brings them up to full health. We also encounter a green dragon, slightly weaker than the static encounter we dealt with earlier, but it's shown that we really are starting to be in the endgame. We opt to grind a little bit more in the ruins, healing between battle and zooming back to the castle when we're low on MP. Level 15 provides me with the Holy Protection spell, a spell that minimises encounters with weaker monsters, making it a bit easier to move around. There is a shiny spot on the ground east of town, protected by another boss battle. This boss is a Knight Abhorrent, and he'll try to cast Snooze on you. One strategy is to use the Fizzle spell to stop him from casting spells, but even at level 15 he hits harder than we can heal, so we need to get stronger before coming back to him. Travelling east from the coast, we come across another town, and another boss encounter protecting it. This is the Golem. The trick with this boss is to put it to sleep with the fairy flute found in the town of Cole. With this, he is relatively easy to take down. However, it can be tedious as the Golem refuses to stay asleep. Anyway, with him down, we are able to enter Cantalin. This fortress town took on survivors from the ruins. This is by far the largest town we can encounter in the game, boasting 3 armories. We learn that the ruin holds a great treasure, presumably the one protected by the knight, and we're able to receive a mark by travelling to a certain location relative to Tantegel. Thankfully, we have a needy princess who will give us our location. I upgrade my sword and leave to find the mark. In this version of the game, it is easier to find since it comes with an exclamation mark over the hero's head when you're standing in the right spot, rather than having to blindly press A. But as in previous releases, the princess's pledge is helpful to track the location down. It is found to the south of Cantalin in, you guessed it, a poisonous bog. Now we have the mark, proving we are the hero, we have all the artifacts, and theoretically can travel to the castle to finish our quest. But there's a few things left to do. Defeat the knight, and save up for our final equipment upgrade, the Silver Shield. Defeating the knight gives us access to the treasure Edric's Armour. This is the strongest armour in the game, allowing us to heal damage with every step we take, to a better degree than the magic armour. After some grinding away from the camera, I'm finally able to purchase the shield, and I'm ready to take on the final challenge. Travelling back to the shrine south of Rimilda, the one with the grumpy sage, we can combine our artifacts together to form the Rainbow Drop. Taking this to where the middle island is the closest, we're able to create a rainbow bridge, allowing us to the castle. As you can imagine, the castle is the longest dungeon in the game, with tight, twisting corridors and lots of dead ends. It even includes an infinite trap corridor. It is a grueling test of patience and endurance for our hero, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of this game. And it would be difficult to survive at earlier levels, as, unsurprisingly, the toughest enemies are here. These being stronger versions of previous enemies we fought as bosses, these also have lots of spells such as Sleep or Fizzle, adding a little bit more difficulty to the proceedings. Remember, Fizzle cancels out your spells, so you cannot heal if you have been fizzled. However, having obtained the strongest armour in the game, we're able to endure these battles and heal around just by exploring the dungeon. Unfortunately, due to the simplistic battle mechanics, without any decisions regarding party composition, without any kind of elemental weakness system, the combat at this point feels tiresome. We just hit A to attack and win, occasionally needing to pause and heal outside of combat. While the game does lack depth that many modern RPGs will provide, the 1 vs 1 combat still at least feels fair in this game. If you are patient enough, travelling through the labyrinth, you can eventually track down the strongest sword in the game. You probably guessed it, the Erdrick sword. And with that weapon found, we are officially the strongest we are able to be, outside of more level grinding. At level 19, we learn our final spell, Sizzle, which is a stronger version of the Sizz spell we learned all that time ago. A little bit underwhelming, as for the monsters we encounter, we are better off saving our magic for mid-heal, which we learnt at level 17. The final floor of the castle appears before us, and to the east we can see our adversary, the Dragon Lord himself. He doesn't look very draconic, does he? We make our way to the treasure room, taking the magic seed and money we have no need to spend, and then we leave the castle. Taking on the Dragon Lord now means we are tackling him without our MP gains through level up. By this point we're now level 20, and for the final confrontation I want to be as powerful as I can. In previous playthroughs of the game, I have previously managed to take on the battle at 18, although I have heard of people finishing this vote off at 17. But I really do believe that anything below this would be nigh impossible due to the lack of healing options. So we go back to the castle, heal up, replenish our supply of magic keys and medicinal herbs before taking our final trek back towards the Dragon Lord's castle. We take our way to the final floor of the castle again, and we're now so strong that our armour keeps us topped up. We approach and confront the Dragon Lord ready to fight, and he makes us an offer. We can rule by his side with half the world. We stop and we think. We can rule half the world. We offer him our weapon, and darkness takes over, before we wake up from the dream. For a game as simple as Dragon Quest, having this choice presented to us is genuinely awesome. And while there is little consequence for picking this, it doesn't end the game, nor does it enable any secret evil path. It's still awesome to see. Anyway, we reload our quick save and we confront him properly. This battle is more or less the same as we have seen before. No new mechanics, but it really is just an endurance and test of when to heal. The Dragon Lord can make us fall asleep as well as heal himself. We need to ensure we keep up with our healing and keep on landing attacks, and eventually we will persevere. He flickers and fades, revealing his true form. Yes, a 2-part final boss battle, and the Dragon Lord reveals he actually is a dragon and his design is terrific. He even comes with a whole new music track, setting up the tradition of unique themes for final bosses. He hits harder, meaning you need to spend more time healing rather than damaging, but the same rules apply. After defeating his true form, we're able to grab the Sphere of Light and restore light back to Alefgard. We zoom back to the castle and receive a royal blessing to leave the land and raise our own kingdom with Princess Gwaelin. And so ends the adventure. Look, despite its age, despite its shortcomings when compared to modern games, this still was something special. It promised adventure and it delivered it. In my opinion, RPGs live and die by their world, as opposed to just their plot and even their gameplay. And Alefgard really is one of my favourite places in games. It's a cliche to say, but this does feel like it lives. There's a certain charm to the NPCs that I feel that other games lack. Despite their simple, reused sprites, I get the sense that the majority of these villagers, the townsfolk, the guards, the kings, the princesses, that they all live their life, and they are scared of what might happen, which is why your role as the hero is so important. But not only that, Because of the characters and the charm, I'm constantly drawn to speak to the NPCs and the hints. The gossip is all provided in a very natural way. There is also a reason why many parts of this game has been carried forward by its sequels. The music, the sound effects, the monster designs, they are all absolutely iconic and will continue to become even more so. And despite the fact that other elements of Dragon Quest games are not in this game, we will talk about those in the future, hopefully, there is enough to still make it worth playing for those who are familiar with the series. I have spent a lot of time detailing this adventure, but there are still secrets, there are still NPCs, and there is still dialogue that is so entertaining I ask you to discover them by yourself. Yes, I am playing with the benefit of a modern port, quality of life changes and all, but in terms of the plot, the script, the pacing, the quest, it was all there in the original release nearly 40 years ago. Don't get me wrong, the combat is simple. It is not going to test you, but it will test your attention to detail and your ability to remember hints and clues and dialogue. And in an adventure that will take you no more than 10 hours, I think that this is actually a reasonable ask. It's a great baseline game that taught gamers how to approach and how to play RPGs, and it was a model from which Yuji Horii was able to expand from in its sequels. While some people may only discuss the game as a beginning and a starting point for the series, I am not lying when I tell you guys that this is one of my favourites, and the one that I replay the most. At the time Dragon Quest III HD 2D was first announced, my only hope was that they would provide the same treatment to this game, and now we are merely a few months away. This video has also been a seed in my head for years, even before the Switch port was released. Back in the day, a long time ago, I even started recording myself playing the mobile port. Yes, my mic sounds like crap, and my editing skills are rough to say the least, but this has genuinely been a dream project of mine. It is my hope that I can eventually make videos for each of the mainline non-MMO games, perhaps even some of the spin-offs. I aim to make videos for the next 2 games before talking about the remakes, so if you would like to see those, please do the YouTube thing of liking this video and subscribing, and if you'd rather I played the original, tell me in the comments. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.